unbridled news and commentary. We're talking today about white collar crime, about the most dangerous crime. Some people think that the most dangerous crime is your rapist, murderer, robber, your burglar, your street criminal that breaks in your house. But to the contrary, the most dangerous criminals are people in government power that commit crimes, use their crimes of privilege. Charles Van Morgan this morning, in the morning. So join me today. We got some great news. We are monetized through YouTube. We got enough subscribers and we can use some more. So come on in this morning. Charles Van Morgan in the morning. We're going to talk about some history of people in government power using violence to gain control of workers. And in the 1890s, how the government under Buchanan in the state of Tennessee used violence to keep down workers and to impoverish workers in the state of Tennessee. So some people think that the worst criminals are your average street thugs that rape, rob, murder, and steal. But that's not true. Your worst criminals are people in state power, people that commit crimes of privilege. So we're going to talk about a little bit of history today. And let me turn this around. We're on our way down to the bridge, maybe another location. Charles Van Morgan in the morning. Thank you all so very much for joining me. Got a great show for you today. So we're going to talk about a little bit of history where the government used violence to control workers and to benefit corporations and to benefit the people that are the owners of property and not the people who provide the services. Charles Van Morgan in the morning. Let me turn this around. And hello, Frosty and Luke, hello. So we're going to talk about crimes of the privilege, more dangerous than any street thug, state government crimes, and talk about what happened under the Tennessee governor, Buchanan, in 1891, Halloween, 1891. There was a uprising of the working class. And we'll tell you what happened to them. They got hung for standing up for their rights. So much more disturbing. Crimes of the gay rights wing. Some of them do. Yeah, that's right. My father died. I'm sorry about that. I pray for you that you'll be okay. And so yeah, let's turn this around and talk about crimes of the privilege this morning. So there is so much of it. Crimes of the privilege, crimes of the elite. And they are in state power. They get in state power. They're crimes of the privilege. And that's how they get in state power. They're privileged. They lie to you. So back in 1891 on October 30th, during Halloween, in 1891, we had a little uprising of coal miners. They got upset, justifiably, because, well, John Buchanan, the governor of the state of Tennessee, had ran on a populist vote. He ran saying that he was going to help workers, that he was against the oligarchy, the people that own the means of production, that own the coal mines, and he was going to stand up for the workers in the state of Tennessee. So he lied to people, ran on the populist. And what was happening was, people think slavery ended in the civil rights movement, but in 1891, the coal miners at Coal Creek up in Rocky Top, Tennessee. Now the state was using prisoners, mostly African American prisoners, to work in the coal mines and also to lower the wages of the working coal miners. Very dangerous work, very hard work. So the state of Tennessee approved being able to use prisoners to work in coal mines, which lowered the employability of the workers in Anderson County and across the state in Kentucky. And so the coal miners got very upset about that and putting them out of work. They didn't have any bargaining power because the coal mines and the people that own the coal mines could just say, well, if you want higher wages, you're out of work, because they had prisoners from the state of Tennessee working in the coal mines and paying them nothing. And so it was to give the state revenue. The state got revenue, and the working class was out of work. And so the coal miners protested, justifiably so. They didn't want, and it was illegal in the legislature. They didn't want prisoners taking their jobs where they didn't get paid. If they went on strike, the coal people that own the coal mines didn't care, because they just got state prisoners, and the coal miners the people that own the coal mines just paid the state low pay for the prisoners to work, and the prisoners didn't get anything, and the coal miners were out of work because they didn't have any chips in the bargaining, because they didn't need them anymore. So on October the 31st, they had a major uprising of the coal miners, and they went and attacked the coal mines and released a lot of the prisoners and put them in street clothes and sent them to Knoxville and said, y'all have a nice day, go and sin no more. And so the governor, John Buchanan, sent troops up to Anderson County and Rocky Top and tried to dispel the uprising of the coal miners. They had help from Kentucky. Coal miners from Kentucky came down to Tennessee, and the coal miners were protesting the fact that they didn't want the state to hire people. So there's a bus coming, so we got to get off the road. To hire people that, I bet the bus thinks I want to ride, but I don't. They didn't want the coal miners, the people that own the mines, to open up to let slaves, or they couldn't let slaves, but they were actually slaves because they were prisoners, work. So the coal miners were upset because the coal mines were allowing the owners of the coal mines to weigh the coal to where it could be biased, because the owners could be deceitful in how much they were paid for the day, because they were over the weigh-in of the coal, the work that they did, and they got paid by the weight. And it was supposed to be a person that was a member of the workers of the coal miners, but the people that own the mines wanted one of their people that owned the coal mines to weigh the coal, which was illegal in the state of Tennessee. But the people that own the coal mines were still doing that. And it was legal to have slaves, but they couldn't go on strike because they would just use slaves. They would just use inmates. It was which was legal to work the coal mine. So they had no bargaining power, and the state was allowing that to happen, even though John Buchanan said that he was running on a populist, that he was for the workers. So they didn't have any bargaining chips. So they didn't have jobs, and they were being pushed out by the state government. So they took over and released the prisoners, and they wouldn't sign the agreement because it was illegal anyway, because they were using the company to weigh the coal miners' weights, the coal miners' work for the day. And they're also doing other things that were illegal under state law, but they were getting by with it anyway because Governor John Buchanan was allowing them to. So John Buchanan went up to to Anderson County with troopers and troops to dispel the uprising where the coal miners released the prisoners and put on street clothes on them and sent them to Knoxville, told them have a nice day, go and send no more. So they're saying, you're not taking our jobs, we'll set you free, but you ain't working our jobs. So which was illegal. But so John Buchanan went up there and told them that he was for the workers, but that he had to uphold state law, that it was legal for the owners of the coal mines to have slaves, because that was legal in the legislature. So he allowed them to. He said he had to follow the law, but the coal miner said, "No, you're not following the law because it's illegal for them to have. It's illegal for the owners of the coal mines to measure what we do every day, and that's what they're doing, and that's illegal. So you're not upholding the law, and other things you're doing is not upholding the law." So it was on Halloween night in 1991. The Tennessee miners made righteous mayhem. And it was in the newspaper back then. Tennessee shame. It became part of the next governor's race. Tennessee shame. Convicts and the coal miners. And the coal miners got together, and on August 18th, before they went there that day and had a meeting, they had a civil rights movement. They had a social movement organization, like we're trying to get in the state of Tennessee. Grand mass meeting. So yeah, they had a meeting. So we're having this little meeting on YouTube. So they tried to get the General Assembly to overturn the law, and they couldn't overturn the law. And then they tried to appeal it to the Supreme Court, the coal miners, to not allow inmates to take their jobs from them. But the Supreme Court, under the premise that it was unsanitary conditions for the inmates, but the Supreme Court, the Tennessee Supreme Court, sided with the owners of the coal mines, and would not stop the coal miners, the inmates, from working at the coal mines. So the coal miners were pretty much out of luck. They couldn't go through legitimate means, so they had no alternative. They felt in their minds, but to take over the coal mines, to take over the prison guards, and they released them, sent them to Knoxville. The governor said, "Well, I got to uphold the law. It's legal to have prisoners. It's legal to have prisoners work. We passed that law." But the coal miner said, "Well, it's illegal to have the coal company weigh in our measurements, and you don't do nothing about that. So why should we obey your laws? You're not being lawful." So here's the crimes of the privilege. You can read this book by Neil Shover, University of Tennessee. He talks about how much more damaging to society are the crimes of the affluent than your street criminals. They go on witch hunts. So they were going on a witch hunt, a campaign to identify, investigate, and correct behavior that undermines a group or a country. So even if it's legitimate. So the state came up there to Anderson County because the coal miners took over and released the prisoners and sent them to Knoxville, Tennessee, right here where I'm at. One of the greatest uprising revolts in American history took place in Tennessee, in Anderson County, and affected the governor's race because workers were being mistreated by the government, put out of work by the government, because the government benefited from putting prisoners to work and put workers out the door to starve to death. That's the way our government will do this. And they had a governor, Buchanan, that even ran on the populist vote. He ran promising that he was for the people, for the populace, for the population, against the powerful. But even people should have caught a clue, because when he was in the legislature, state representative, he voted to approve letting prisoners work, and their work would be paid to the state. And then he ran on a populist campaign and won. And then when he was in the governor's office, he went with state troopers to Anderson County, to Rocky Top, it's called now, and tried to stop the protesters, the rioters, the coal miners from stopping the coal companies from hiring prisoners and putting them out of work, and stopping the coal mine owners from breaking the law about the not weighing the weight of not allowing the coal miners to weigh the weight of their daily work, allowing the coal company to do it, and they could be very deceitful about that, and other things they were doing that were against state law. And the governor didn't care nothing about that. He was just worried about the coal miners, the coal mine companies, not the coal miners, not the workers. And you know, that's history. History repeats itself. I would submit to you today that the governor of the state of Tennessee, the previous several governors, don't care anything about the workers. They care about the corporations, and these major industries that exploit you. So I'll finish what happened up there in Anderson County. Let me see how many people I got on here. And also as it relates to other issues with the state government using apparatus of crime control and capital punishment to control the masses of people who are fighting for their rights against a corrupt, dirty, crooked government. So we'll look at that. So hang with me today. Today we have gotten monetized. So if you're on here, subscribe. I am Real Unbridled News. I have a Master of Arts in Sociology with an emphasis in criminology from the University of Tennessee. So I look at things look at the news I'm also a journalist, but from a sociological perspective. Who benefits from the news story that's coming out, and what's the real truth behind it? The news will tell you what their corporations tell them to. They serve the corporations, they serve the government, they don't serve you. My perspective is from who benefits from the story that the major news companies are putting out. Who benefits from the situation that's going on? And I'll tell you from a scientific perspective, from a journalist, from a sociological perspective, and let you know what's going on that you won't get anywhere else. You won't get that anywhere else, because I've got nothing to lose except my life, and I'm concerned about that. They may try to kill me. Stand up against the government. Stand up against the government brings repercussions. That's why nobody does it. And you'll hear that from me, because I'm standing up against the government. But I'm in a position where I need to do that. Now, I'm not saying they will. I'm just saying it's a probability on my radar. So I watch out for being assassinated. Like Charlie Kirk was assassinated. I look out for that. And I don't think the government was involved in that. But the government, if somebody assassinates me, look at the government. The government's the culprit of it, because I'm standing up against them, calling them out for the crimes that they commit against humanity, against society. So thank y'all for coming on here. We'll look at some of the comments and try to respond to some of them. And while you're on here, subscribe. We've already got over 1,000 subscribers. We can get some more. Unbridled news you won't hear anywhere else. Subscribe, hit the like button so I know you subscribed. And we'll talk a little bit about history, and history repeats itself. We can learn from history. And we can object to these abuses of people in government power. And one of the ways we can object to it is all over the world. No matter what city or county you're in or what country you're in, object to these injustices. Be smart about it. And in Tennessee, voters of Tennessee enraged. Get enraged and go vote. If you're not registered to vote, become a voter. And get enraged at these mass injustices that affect your daily lives. And do something about it. Support this cause, support this channel, support this movement. And we may run for public office, I don't know. That's a way to get a stage, a platform. I've run for 2 offices before. People think that I lost. I didn't win the election because it's rigged. There's no way I can win an election. Right now, I might be able to in the future because of state-run media, because of their lies about me. But it puts a spotlight on me, a small one, but it's a way to try to get on the stage and get a spotlight on me. So I've ran for 2 elections and got a lot of attention, even being even I was even arrested because I ran for governor. So noisy cars. So we may try again to get a spotlight, to get news coverage. So join the social movement. Power to you, the people, and subscribe to the channel. You want to hear this news anywhere else, and we'll continue talking about history and how it's repeating itself from a sociological perspective. Thank y'all for joining me. And we'll read some of the comments and see what y'all got to say. And like, share, comment, and we'll continue with this dialogue about the most destructive to humanity, to you personally, is not your street criminals. People are afraid to walk down the street, get robbed or mugged by somebody. A lady carrying a purse, afraid that somebody will steal the pocketbook. It happened to my mother when I was younger. I remember how upset she was, and that's very destructive and very, very, very upsetting. But I'm here to tell you today that even more serious than that is crimes of people in government power have on society. That's much more detrimental, because they not only snatch one purse, they snatch millions of purses all over the United States of America because of the crimes that they commit. And they're not even labeled as crimes in some cases, because they arrange the laws to make crimes legal for them. Theft of money is legal for the Tennessee Supreme Court. They steal student loan money, and it's legal because they get their names on deans of law schools and allow them to do that. But being a Tennessee Supreme Court justice ought to be about public service, not about retiring from the bench, and I said bench. And while you're on the bench, you do what the governor tells you to do. You don't follow the Constitution. I don't think they follow the Constitution. And if I'm banned on YouTube, I hope not. I'm following the rules, trying to. I'm just telling the truth. Scientific. You can read this in any sociology, criminology handbook, the stuff I'm saying. It's not far out. It's not out of the ordinary. Neil Shover from the University of Tennessee Teaches some of the same things, some of the principles I learned from him from a textbook at a university. But if they ban me off YouTube, look me up on Telegram or Rumble, or just remember the name, Charles Van Morgan. That's the brand, because I am going to inform you about government crimes that are much. You ought to worry about government crimes, people in the government. Government is good. Government is not a bad thing. We got to have government. But people that infiltrate the government, facilitate their will, it's human nature, are much more dangerous and concerning to you as far as your everyday life, are much more harmful to you, cost you much more money than you have to worry about a street criminal. And that's not something new. They cause much more damage. And look at the damage they caused in the 1890s by putting coal miners out of work, allowing prisoners to work, and enforcing that law, because the prisoners objected to that, but not enforcing the other laws that help the coal miners. So that's how crooked the state government can be under John McCain. Although he lied and ran on a populist vote. Let me see, read the comments, and we'll continue that dialogue. Thank y'all for joining me. Like, share, and subscribe. If you subscribe, hit the like button so I know you subscribed. So thank y'all for listening. And we'll continue with the dialogue about corruption in your government that you'll hear nowhere else. Wow, what a interesting video. One ever. Have a good test your morning. Okay. Still yapping. You're doing an essential job, brother. Thank you. Uncle Chuckle. Okay. Poppy. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Uncle Jerry. How old are you, sweetie? I am 61. So let's see what this says. Timmy Ray. I know this. I'm very upset. I'm going to look into this for you. You telling they look criminals and law-abiding working-class men lost their jobs for criminals. Yeah, they sure did. The Coal Creek coal mine incident in the 1891, and they're still doing it to this day. They're still doing that to this day. I already read that book. Okay. Absurd. All the absurd way. Okay. This man has an old school slideshow. Yeah. That's because I don't have I love Pops. Thank you. Where are you going? Okay, we're going downtown. Cheeky bit of fitness. Okay. Wow. Where are you walking to, King Charles? I'm walking to downtown. Yes, sir. Hello. Let's see. I need my tinfoil hat for this. I get it. Talking about the Wizard, the Wizard of Oz. Enable the stream elements bot by adding this count as a moderator, allowing your company to gain access to commands and have your live streams automatically monitored. Yeah. Grumps on his morning walk. What you doing, Charles? I'm talking about crimes of the affluent. So in 1891, Halloween, the coal miners released prisoners and sent them to Knoxville, put clothes on them, put street clothes on them, and told them to have a good day and go and sin no more. And the state got mad. Of course they did. They're losing money. Those they didn't care about the coal miners. They cared about the state getting revenue and getting money off those slaves, that they were prisoners, but they were just slaves. Slavery didn't end during the slavery. They still used it because it was illegal then to use inmates to do free paid labor that you paid to the state, not to the inmate. So Governor John Buchanan marched up there to protect his government paychecks by his government officials, and lied, running on a populist movement, but lied, and he went up there to shut the coal miners down and stand up for the coal mining companies. That's what the government does. They'll stand against you even when they tell you they won't, just like John Buchanan. That's the same thing that's going on today. History repeats itself. And you know what happens to people that stand up against the government and say, I gotta work, I gotta eat, I gotta have a job, and you're taking my job away. The state government's taking my job away, using prisoners that are arrested for minor petty offenses to take my job away from me, putting people in jail, probably some of them unjustifiably, petty offenses, and then making them work for free and putting civilians out of work. That's what they did in 1891, just a few years before this Gay Street Bridge was built in 1898. And so the coal miners revolted. They're not putting up with that. They shouldn't have to put up with people in government power using the government to shut their jobs down. Of course the government wants more money for the government so they can pay themselves more. And that's what they do today. That's what Governor Bill Lee does. That's what Governor Bill Haslam does. That's what they do. And they legitimize themselves. Look at the down at the University of Tennessee, Governor Bill Haslam, the former governor, his name's on the side of the building, acting, he's legitimate. He's for an education. He ain't for the education I got, because the education I got teaches me that he's a slumlord. He's a thug. But that's how they legitimize themselves. If you won't see my name on that building, unless we take over the governor's office, and I wouldn't have it up there anyway, I'd have some child or something memorializing school violence and doing something positive instead of memorializing myself. It's straight out of the pages of the Bible. They think they'll live forever. They name stuff after their own name to keep themselves alive after they're dead, you know. I wouldn't worry about that. I'd worry about what God thinks about me, not man. So the governor went up there, and we're going to finish this story and tell you how it relates to Louisiana. If you stand up against the government, then I'll tell you what happens. And it's starting to crank up here, because when the government senses that it's losing a grip on power, then they start executions, they start hangings, and they show you, hey, this is what you get when you stand up for your rights. And normally in situations, maybe you shouldn't. It's not worth being hanged. I mean, just being logical. Is it that important of an issue? If it's not, hey, I don't want to be hanged. You know, maybe let somebody else fight that fight. I mean, just being an intelligent human being, I can't control the whole government. But when it comes to, like it was in October 1891, when you can't eat, and they're allowing coal owners to break the law, and saying that you're breaking the law because you're standing up against your rights, stand up for your rights, and you can't eat, then you got to stand up. So they did. The governor brought state troopers up there and said, even though I run on populist movement, I'm for you, but I'm going to fight you. That's what they do. They literally, I'm for you, but I'm going to fight you. So the coal miners and troopers and the government got into it, and they got one of the working coal miners that was trying to fight for his right to eat and make a living legally, legitimately, and not be taken out of work by the government, and they hanged him. In 1891, they hanged a coal miner, and several other coal miners were injured. And the coal miners tried to take over one of the facilities where they were holding inmates, another one, and because of the mass amount of the governor's law enforcement, the state highway patrol and the law enforcement that the governor brought up with them, they lost, and but they were able to get the governor unelected because another man ran against him and pointed out the injustice of the allowing inmates to work for free and pay the state. So that uprising was put down, but they got the concessions because they supported a man for governor to run against Buchanan. So in Tennessee, we can support somebody to run against the Republican Party that says, now I know they say, John Buchanan said he supported populists. They say they support the populists, the mass population of people. They say they support the churches. But don't look at what they say, look at what they do. Under Democrats and Republicans both, I know a lady who had a job during the 2008 Depression. And the government, during 2008 Depression, when people were losing their jobs, when major corporations were getting money because they defrauded people, being upheld by the dirty government, the government in the state of Tennessee put out new rules to put people out of work, saying that you had to pass this certain licensing test in order to keep your job that you already had. So they put out new rules putting people out of work that they were qualified to do the job they did, sleep techs, because they'd already been doing the job and for years and had an education to do it. But the state put out a test that didn't have anything to do with sleeping, with the job that they were doing, anything to do with the probes that they put on people. Didn't have anything to do with that. And tested people on stuff they knew nothing about, and took a lot of people out of work if they couldn't pass that test that the state went out during the 2008 major depression in the economy. So the state of Tennessee put people out of work, and that was not under the Republicans, that was under the Democrats. So both parties are wicked as hell. They're wicked. Neither party is good. And all the parties are in Tennessee. When you have a governor's race in the state of Tennessee, here's one way you can tell that it's not a legitimate race. You can find the legitimate people by the harshness of their rhetoric. You think, well, the harsh people with harsh rhetoric are they're the ones we won't vote for. No, they're the ones you should vote for, because they're the ones telling you the truth. Because politics should not be pretty. But what you have in Tennessee is the Democrats and Republicans, for the most part. They are fighting. They both have power in Tennessee. They're not losing anything. It's just getting the upper seat in the state government. Both of them are for the same thing, for themselves. So when you have candidates that are pretty much agreeing on everything and running peaceful campaigns, and I'm not talking about violence, I don't believe in any violence, but running peaceful campaigns is not, as far as not running the other candidate down, what people say are running the other candidate down, it's not running the other candidate down. It is speaking the truth about the other candidate, because you need to, because they're going to have power over people, maybe to put them out of work. So you need to turn over rocks and find out about the candidate. And when you find out the truth about things, or questions that are serious in nature that need to be answered, a real political candidate, which, I'm following in the footsteps of some that you know well, a real political candidate will point out those discrepancies, even if they're not pretty. Because if you don't point them out and you say, well, I just want to be a nice guys finish last, and the public finishes last. So you're not just pointing out how corrupt these people are for yourself. It's not for yourself, it's for the public. Because if they get elected and they don't know this stuff, then they don't know what kind of character the person has. So when they get elected, they're going to do stuff like Governor Bill Lee did when he was in office. What he's done, he halted death penalties. And what for everybody, and what Governor Bill Haslam did. Governor Bill Haslam, he ended his own taxes, ended them. There was an inheritance tax that only applied to super rich people, which applied to him. He had to pay that inheritance tax. People that had over $500,000. I know that's not a lot of money. That's not talking about your house. That's talking about cash. Not talking about necessities. When you died, you had to pay, your family had to pay an inheritance tax, because nobody's worth millions and millions of dollars. So you got that money from the public through exploiting them mostly. So he had to pay an inheritance tax. And he ended that tax. But then he raised yours. And I'll tell you how he did it. And I want y'all to pay attention. So you can take about a 5-minute break. And I'll be right back and finish the story. Thank y'all. We're going to start taking a few short breaks. So if you want to advertise, here's your point to advertise. So we'll take a few short breaks. Join me back in about 2 or 3 minutes. Thank you. So hello. We're back in here. Let's see if we lost many people. Come on back in if you left. So Charles Van Morgan in the morning. So let's read a few comments and we'll talk about good morning from Arizona. Good morning, Arizona. So if you want to advertise, you can advertise during that space. So what Governor Haslam did is he increased your taxes. Ended the inheritance tax gone, which is a tax he had to pay. So he ended his tax, and he increased your taxes because where you delete your taxes, you have to make everybody else pay. And the crime, that's one of the reasons why crimes of the rich and powerful are less emphasized, because it's just a few cents out of everybody's pocket. It's not major catastrophe where they steal your whole pocketbook. They just take a few cents out of everybody's pocketbook. And that's what Bill Haslam did. They name it the Road Safety Act. The Road Safety Act. And all it is a gas tax on you that everybody has to pay if you want to get anywhere. And if you don't pay a gas tax now, you have to pay it in when you get your license plate tag, or you can't drive on the road if you have an electric vehicle. So he raised the gas tax and ended his tax. And made it legal to do that. Got it through the legislature, just like it was legal through the legislature to let prisoners work without getting paid. They were really slaves, state-owned slaves, arrested for minor petty crimes. I'll explain to you about that here in just a minute. Arrested for major, minor, petty crimes so that the state could put them in custody, cause them to work, put coal miners, free citizens out of their jobs in the state of Tennessee. Just like, and when they revolted against that, they got to eat. They had to. There was nothing else they could do. And they hung one of them and injured several of them and quelled the protest. But the movement, which our movement can do this too, can get a governor in office that is a true populist, that will approve of things Tennesseans want to do in other cities in the United States. You can, in other states in the United States, you can do the same thing. You can revolt against these policies, not by violent attacks, but by social movement organizations, which I'll explain to you at some point in the future, because it's pretty detailed. But it's an organization of people that get together for a common cause and do things to promote that common cause outside normal means of accomplishing the task. Not anything illegal, but a lot of things you can do that the government considers unruly. That's not illegal. One of the things the government thinks is unruly is to say, I disagree with you, or to vote for them, to vote for one of their competitors. They consider that unruly. So I'm just saying, I'm not talking about breaking civil laws. You don't have to. You can, excuse me, piss them off by just disagreeing with them. It's easy to do. And we're going to do that. We're going to do that. We're going to disagree with them. Disagree with the establishment, both Democrats and Republicans, because they're not on your team. They're just getting a little higher seat. If a Democrat wins, the Republican didn't really lose anything. They still keep their office. The next time they can run again, it's just whoever gets the top seat. They're still in power. Both parties are in power. And neither party is for you. Neither one of them's for you. Just face it. They're not. So when it comes down to it, I'll tell you a inclination who I think that you should vote for. Maybe it'll be me. I don't know. I don't know. We can put a dent in their crimes, and it is crimes. So in Missouri, like I spoke of in a previous video about 3 days ago, in Missouri, or excuse me, Louisiana, in the 1890s, they had a similar uprising where the working class farmers revolted against the merchants, the owners of the farmers' work, the do-nothings, and so all of a sudden there's no crime issue when there's a political movement or an uprising against people in government power through voter incentive, trying to get voters together, not voter incentives, that would be illegal, but through voter registration efforts. They've made Tennessee illegal in some cases to have voter registration efforts. You have to register with them so they can tell you not to do it and fine you and put you in jail if you do. Through voter registration efforts, through getting the word out about the movement. And there's a lot of things we can do to fight the corruption in government power. The most heinous form of crime that you have to worry about is stuff that's not even labeled crime. It's stuff that the government does to you, some through flat out criminal activities, and some through things that are harmful to all society in Tennessee, in the state, but they made it legal, just like they did in 1891, when it was legal to have slaves work for free and they incarcerate them, some based on bogus charges, so they can get them to work for free and work for the state and pay the state more money, more tax money. You can look it up. The Coal Creek miners protest and Governor Buchanan. So the miners still got together. They still want concessions, got him kicked out of office. And in Louisiana, in 1890, what the government does when there's people standing up against them, we got to eat for significant reasons, not for every little peddly thing that comes along, but for significant reasons. I mean, we overlook a lot of abuses from the government, a lot of them, a lot of times we overlook it. And, you know, we can overlook Governor Haslam not paying taxes. Hey, that's fine. That's not a good thing, but we're not going to riot because he doesn't pay taxes. Nobody likes to pay taxes. And maybe we should, I don't know, but when it comes to putting you out of work, even during a depression, when it comes to affecting, that's what sociologists deal with, mass numbers of people all across the state of Tennessee, all the crooked corruption going on. You look at your food prices today. That's not a mistake or something that just happens through the course of things. That is people in government power inflicting inflation on us for their benefit. It's their fault. Food prices would not be this high if we had people in government in the state of Tennessee doing their jobs. And we wouldn't have mass crime in the state of Tennessee. That street crime, rapes, robbers, murders, and thieves, and the crashes on the highway by illegal conduct that kill Tennesseans every day. If we had people in government power that were not self-serving, that did their job, that didn't make laws to benefit them, and do the distraction techniques of taking your eyes off the ball, off the real issue, and not scoring the touchdown in the end zone. Keep your eye on the ball. Look at what's really going on. I mean, in the case where I got terminated, hundreds of drunk drivers got released. I'll show you a graph. The fatality rate skyrocketed because I was a government official that was doing my job. Governor Bill Lee did a distraction technique. He knew that that might cause a public uproar. So what he did, the dirty man that he is he did a public commercial using his platform. So there's an ambulance. So if you see ambulance people, they're angels sent from heaven. Practically speaking, God bless them, I pray. Thank an ambulance driver if you run into them sometime this week. If you need help and you're seriously in bad of help, been there, done that, you can't help yourself. Those ambulance people are angels. How much money they make when you're in need of help, it ain't enough, and it ain't. A lot of professions, politicians, that do a lot of harm to you, that put you in a bad position, that put you where an ambulance needs to pick you up, are making a hell of a lot more money than ambulance drivers. So let's take it out of the politicians' pockets, these attorney generals, these state officials that put you in bad positions by their corrupt policies. Take the money away from them, put them in jail where they belong, and give the money to ambulance drivers. Give the money to our public school teachers. Give the money to protect our public schools where you have mandatory school attendance, but you don't have mandatory protection of students while they go to their little shooting ranges for people to come in there and do massacres on them. What's wrong with people, not you all, but what's wrong with people in government power that they want to protect dirty judges, but they don't want to protect students in school? It's called state crime. It's state crime. It's not a fluke or by accident this stuff happens. It's by design. It's because they use all government resources to take care of themselves, and they don't care about you. They don't give a damn about you. They don't give a rat's ass about you. I might get demonetized for that. I don't know. I hope not. So we'll delete the video. Please don't, YouTube. I don't beg anybody. But this is a serious conversation. If we had honest, decent government that wasn't full of criminals, and I won't even call it crime. There's some supporters. I won't even call it crime because they don't call it crime. If we had decent public officials that cared about not harming you, if they have to benefit by harming you, they'll harm you. Then we wouldn't have the wreck of society that we have now. It's in the hands of people that should be, some of their actions, a lot of them should be criminalized, and they should be put behind bars. They're dirty, rotten thieves. And they do things that are criminal. They steal money, but they make it legal the way they do it. But it's still harmful to you all. You still have to pay money out of your paycheck. It's hard to get people to understand about government crime because it's just a few cents that you pay at the grocery store, so people feel like it doesn't make that much difference. But it's still catastrophe to everyone in the state of Tennessee. Tennessee judges steal money from people in California. Everybody in the nation, in the United States of America, ought to be mad at Tennessee judges. They retire from the Tennessee Supreme Court after ordering executions to do what I'll tell you they do, why they do stuff like that in the end. Sometimes, not all the time, but it sends a message. We're in charge. How you like that noose? And that's what they do. Tennessee judges retire from the bench, following the orders of the governor, not the Constitution, and they take student loan money when they become deans of school. Some law school deans make $500,000 a year, and they just have their name on the door. They don't work, and they get student loan money because students come to their school. The students don't get the money. They pay it to these expensive law schools. It costs about $130,000 to go to law school. They pay that money to law schools, pays the deans excessive salary, which is tax money that comes from California. Some of them can't afford to pay it back. A lot of them, because they fell out of law school. Law school's hard. Some of them can't pass. But they let them in school anyway. They get their first, second, third year, or maybe fail them out in the fourth year, and they've got all their money, and it's not their money. They can't afford to pay it back because they're not lawyers, but it's tax money, so somebody has to pay that back. It's funded by your federal government, federal student loan money. Californians got to pay it back because it comes out of their back pockets. Tennessee judiciary does that, the honest people that they are. That's how they get by with this stuff. They want to act like they're legitimate. They're about as legitimate as John Buchanan was, saying he was a populist movement when he was putting coal miners out of work and then hanging them. Hey, they're going to work or we'll hang you. Or we're going to get our state workers, our prisoners to work to pay for us. And if you try to stop that, we'll hang you. Just like they did in Louisiana. When what the government does, this is sociology 101. This ain't high science. It ain't a conspiracy theory. It's under criminology, sociology. What sociologists say they do based on studies. And now there's other thoughts of why it happens. You know very clearly why I think it happens, because government's crooked. They want everything for themselves. They're gluttons. That's why they want power. They can arrange the rules to help themselves. Charles Van Morgan, I got a Master of Arts in Criminology, a Doctor of Jurisprudence in the law. I know how they do. I know these people. I've met them. They're crooked as hell. They're so stupid they believe their own damn lies sometimes. And the ones that are smart enough to do something about it can't, because if they speak out against them, they put a noose around their neck too, and they got to feed their kids. But we can do something about it, and we're going to. We're doing it right now. Almost half a million people, more than 500,000 people have listened to me talk about this. Is what gets me in trouble. Voting, and being a squeaky wheel, letting people know we're not putting up with this. This is a society that's become intolerable. We can't eat. Food prices are so high. But your food prices ain't high. Our taxes are high, but you have none. You have no taxes. You ended those when you were in power. Isn't that interesting how that works out? Let's get power to end our own taxes. Did he run on that? He ran on ended taxes, his own, but he raised it as yours. That's Bill Haslam. Got his name on the University of Tennessee. What a dirtbag crook. You want to hear that from anybody else? So let's get together and vote. But in Louisiana, they had these farmers that were upset about being exploited. They were doing all the work, and the merchant class, the rich class, was taking their work and selling it and making money off their hard work. They wanted a little more money from their hard work. The merchants wouldn't have anything to sell except for Louisiana, except for the working class. The farmers were making the food, so they said, hey, we want a little bit of this, our work. So, and the merchants were in power because they won elections. Well, you think you won elections, you're legitimate. How do you win the elections? Are they legitimate, fair elections? Are they free and fair elections? No. Why can't I win an election? I'd be good for society. Because they're not free and fair. Because when I was campaigning, they put me in jail. You may show you a mugshot? They say I did all kinds of stuff. They lie. Let them show a video of me doing something illegal. What I did that they don't like is I pissed them off because I said, I'm running for governor. I'm going to meet with the populace and do what y'all want me to do. I've done it before. I lowered the fatality rate. I'll lower the hunger and poverty rate. I'll help the masses of the population that want to help themselves. I'll help the working class. That made them mad because they don't want to help the working class. Governor Bill Lee doesn't want to help the working class. He wants to help his friend, Governor Bill Haslam, the one that ended his taxes. That's who he's for. He can call himself a Christian all he wants. I don't know his heart. I know how he lives. He's in bad jeopardy, if he is going to heaven, of not getting any rewards and having to answer for a lot of things he did. Now, you could still go to heaven and not be perfect, but he's so far from it. And people that are in government power are held to a higher standard. They even swear to uphold the Constitution. Then he goes and walks all over it. He had me put in jail. He was responsible for that. The Republican Party did that. So we'll tell you what they did in Louisiana. And we got some papers here we'll show you. Evidence, present my case to the jury. How many people in here think the government is honest and I need to shut up and go away? Or do you appreciate having a front man stand up against the power? And one way to protect me is public pressure on the elite. So how many people...
Excuse me. Thank you.
Thank you. So how many people believe the government's legitimate and that we need to obey them and go and we need to I wouldn't quite put it that way. I can't help what other people say, if y'all heard her. But we wouldn't and we need to just starve to death and let the government take our jobs. How many people believe that? Or that we should stand up against them, and you're glad to have somebody speaking up. You won't hear this anywhere else. You hear little nuggets of it in some stuff like the civil rights attorney, and little nuggets of it in some of the First Amendment protesters, although I'm not a First Amendment protester. I don't go take a fight to them. You don't have to. You don't have to take a fight to them. You simply stand your ground and go about your business, and you're in trouble. That's what people think. Well, I ain't got to worry about the government. They'll leave me alone. No, they won't. Go to the grocery store and try to buy a grocery for your family. They haven't left you alone. That tax money wouldn't be so high if they would pay their fair share. You could afford to live and eat and be prosperous. The reason why you can't be prosperous is because of rogue people in government power, because these Tennessee judges. The reason why there's so much homelessness is because these Tennessee judges that have 2 and 3 houses that give their family houses that don't even work off your tax money, that take over these schools and have people from California pay their tax money into a system that funnels it's legal for us to be deans of schools. It should never be legal for a dean to get filthy, sickening rich and then deny a law license after you paid them to get through school, like they did me. People think this is all about me. No, it's not. It's lived personal experience. It's what they do to you. You can be walking around in your daily life, just whistling a tune, living your life, and you make a government official or part of the government mad, or maybe they just don't want you in the city because you're not voting for them, or for whatever reason they decide. It's not for us. I know a lot of the reasons, but it's not for people to decide why somebody's doing something illegal. Motive. It's not for us to decide motive. You don't have to prove motive to get somebody convicted. Somebody murders somebody. There's witnesses that they did it. They got the blood all over the place. The prosecutor doesn't have to go to the courthouse and tell the jury, hey, he did it because of this. Now, motive helps. It helps. But if you see they did it, you don't have to know what the inner workings of their sick mind are. So a lot of the reasons why the government does stuff, I don't have to figure out the inner workings of the minds. I just see the results. The economy's going to hell. They're living in houses 2 and 3, and there's homeless people all over the place. And they have so much money, and then when they die, they don't even pay taxes on it. Who does all this? Who believes that's right and fair? So we'll tell you about what they did in Louisiana. It's on the video a few days. Same time they were doing it in Tennessee, and the same thing they're doing today. And we're almost to the bridge. We'll show you some paperwork I got here, presenting my case to the jury, some motive, and how many people agree with me. Stick with me on the channel. God bless y'all. I appreciate y'all. God bless y'all. I pray. So that was a prayer for you all right there. And God bless my detractors. You know, I hope that you see the light. If you don't, hey, live in your little bubble. Live in your little bubble. So let me read some of the comments. We're almost to the bridge, and we will read you some of the evidence I got. Let's see how many people got in here. Got a few. Yeah, we're still building up. Thank y'all so very much. Somebody's posting in here a bunch of garbage. Let's see. Charles Van Morgan initiated a high-speed chase that ended in a crash and took the life of a 20-year-old child. Charles saw the crash, ended the chase, and watched the child burn. Glory. That's not true. Oh, you want me to trying to get a reaction out of it? That's not true. That's a lie. That's a government lie. That's Governor Buchanan saying that I'm going to enforce the law that prisoners can work, but the fact that they're cheating the scale and getting their own people to do the scale, getting their own people to judge, you got a fair court system. Now that's you're not going to get a reaction out of me. That's part of something I'm proud of, because I was out on the road doing my job. Where were you at that night? Were you in bed asleep while I was out protecting you? If you think that's gonna get a reaction out of me by printing government lies, keep printing those lies. That's not true. Why ain't I going somewhere and hiding? And I presented evidence after evidence after evidence of the crooked court system in Tennessee that got through, and that's why I'm out here. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Thank you for mentioning a government lie, for repeating a government lie. Repeat it enough times and you think people will believe you. Well, the truth has merit, weight, and value. And everybody on here, that's a dirty lie. That's a dirty lie. I lowered the fatality rate, and I'm going to show you a chart how when I was on the road, the fatalities went down. And I didn't initiate a chase. See that the term of that. I tried to stop him. He is the one that initiated that by not stopping. So I'm responsible for somebody else's actions. Yeah, right. Look at the spin in that lie. And I watched the child. The man was a grown adult. So look at the lies in that statement. And you're not getting I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'd like to bring that up. But we won't today. That's for another day. But that's part of the government lie. See the bold-faced, blatant lies. And we got it through a court system, so that makes it legitimate. Yeah, right. They got it through a crooked court system. And they will do the same thing to you. That's what I'm telling you. So look at that as an example of a life-lived experience where I'm saying, what are they doing here? And they even raised the fatality rate by doing their dirty. So yeah, keep bringing the state trash government lies up. Thank you for lying on me. That's exactly what it is. And so we'll talk about what they did in Louisiana. There's no cars coming, so I'm gonna cross. We'll talk about what they did in Louisiana in 1890, as they were doing this in Tennessee. All across the nation, there's all of a sudden a uprising of the working class against the state. And so what happened? They start executing people, not because of crime, because the people in Louisiana didn't commit crimes. They simply were trying to win the election. The people in Louisiana, the working class, were revolting at the merchants. And we'll take another break here. So give y'all a chance to go to the restroom, whatever you need to do, and we'll be right back here in just a minute. We'll tell you about the Louisiana situation. Thank y'all. See you. Good morning. Come on in, Charles Van Morgan. We're going to finish the dialogue here. Yeah, we lost a few people. So let's talk about what they did in Louisiana. Is the state instituted a crime wave where none existed, and they started hanging people, which now in the past few years, the state has instituted executions as a result of a previous crime wave. So they just changed the rules a little bit, but they put out executions for several people. So according to sociologists, what happens is when the people in the establishment start to sense that they're losing grip on power, that they might get voted out like in Louisiana, then they start throwing opposition in jail, and also they start hanging them and executing opposition, not for crime, for trying to take over their power, for trying to set the record straight. That's a mainstream sociological thinking. It's not something new. It's not hocus pocus. In Louisiana, the merchant class had slaves, and the slaves could vote. The African Americans could vote in 1891 in Louisiana, and so they voted for their bosses. But when the farmers started revolting, I think they were trying to convince some of the black people this situation's not for you either. Maybe you should change your vote and not vote for your owner, and trying to put out information that the system wasn't fair. So the merchant owners started getting upset, and they worried about their grip on power. Just like now, you see the Tennessee Supreme Court putting dates for executions for stuff that was real crimes that happened years ago, but why are they all of a sudden doing it now when they had a moratorium on them earlier? There's reasons behind stuff. It's not as plain as some people think. There's sociological factors at work. That's what sociologists study. What's really going on here? Who benefits from this? So the public is very much in favor, for legitimate reasons and illegitimate reasons sometimes, for things they think are the way it is, it's not really the way it is. For illusionary reasons, the public is, at least by their own admission, according to studies, the public is very much in favor of the death penalty. So when the government starts executing a lot of people, they're trying to get public favor, because that's what they think the public's for, so they execute people. So why are they starting to execute a bunch of people in the state of Tennessee right now? Because they're losing their grip on power, and because they want to get public support. The public overwhelmingly is for executions. They put them off for years. Why are they starting them now? I know why they said they put them off, but that's not true. The same issues exist today that did when they put them off. In fact, they've even got worse. So why don't they put them off now? Because they know if they do now, they'll lose power. So we'll explain to you about Louisiana what happened. Thank y'all for joining me. Like, share, contribute. So the people are protesting. That's right. They need to. Actually, it's the government. People with Southern accent are disadvantaged. I don't think I'm at a disadvantage. So what happened in Louisiana is they had a crime wave all of a sudden. So they start executing people, make people afraid. Even African Americans say, hey, you go against us and look what happens to you. You get executed. Well, there was no executions. Now, there was a study done. The United States has more people incarcerated in prisons than any nation in the world. There's more people in our prisons, and we supposedly have more freedom. There's a study done that says that the imprison rate, you think, the common consensus, and that's what sociology does. Think about what happens and think about, does it really make sense? Think below the underlying issues about what might be really going on instead of what it just looks like on the surface. That's what sociologists study. What's going on in the larger social context that could cause this to happen? Who's benefiting from this mass event happening? When one person is out of work, you could say, well, they're lazy. and they just don't want to work, and it's their fault. But when masses of people get unemployed, when the food prices rise for everybody, when taxes are astronomical, when a lot of people are going to jail at astronomical rates, the prisons are full, they're building more prisons, when they're tearing down hospitals all over the state and medical care is unreasonably high, then who's benefiting from this? It ain't just one person that can't go to the hospital. It's a lot of little children. Tennessee's putting down more, it's closed more hospitals than anywhere in the state. It's not one person, it's mass people. Tennessee kicked off insurance by county, a clear choice. Tennessee and Cover Kids have purged at least 128,000 children from their enrollment. This is how many kids have been cut from each program in Tennessee's 10 most populous counties, plus other counties in your area. That was 2019. It's even worse today. There's little children, and so it ain't just one child that can't go to the hospital. It's a lot of children. It's even more today, I bet, 128,000 that can't go to the hospital. It's not just one person that can't go to the hospital. One person can't go to the hospital, you say, well, their dad's not working, or their mom's not working, their parents are lazy. But when it's 128,000 children across the state, there's not 128,000 lazy moms and lazy dads that don't care about their kids, that wouldn't do whatever they could do to get medical insurance and have their children have medical insurance. It's because there's something in place that prevents them. They can't. It's not possible. Don't blame it on them. One person out of work, sure. But when there's mass layoffs, there's a social issue going on. That is our issue. A hospital used to be right here. Used to be a hospital right here, the corner of West Blunt and Henley Street. Baptist Hospital for years. It's closed down now. Is there less of a need for medical care? There's more people. No, it's a social problem, because Tennessee leads the nation in closure of hospitals. The most common method of justifying exploitative practices are blaming the victim by proposed character flaws impede their chances of success. So that's what the government does. Oh, it's that person won't work, that's why. But when it's a mass problem, it's not a character problem. Emphasizing that the less successful benefit from the system established by the powerful. So that's how they get by with this crooked stuff. And that's why we need to be unruly. So in Louisiana, they started a hanging. They started a mass hanging of people, a crime wave that shortly ended after they maintained power. And then also in the 1900s, black people were not allowed to vote. Now I'm talking about a lot of bad stuff, but I want you to always remember this right here, so you won't get too bad upset, because you can pray about it. Daniel 4:35 is a Bible verse from the book of Daniel, and declares God's absolute sovereignty, stating that people are insignificant in His presence. The government's insignificant in God's presence, and no one can question or challenge His will and actions, either in the heavenly realm or on earth. The verse emphasizes that God is in total control of everything and operations according to His divine purposes. And I can assure you, God's divine purposes are good for us. And so God's not surprised, though I am, so ultimately trust in God. You can trust in God. But I'm just telling you the facts as they are, and God expects us to do what we can. And joint collective action to take over government power through the voting booth. And also look at this. And all inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing, and He doth according to His own will in the army of heaven and among the inhabitants of the earth, and none can stay his hand or stay and say unto him, what dost thou? Now, God provided a Savior, though. He loves us, and we got to trust that He loves us, and He does, and He'll work things out in our favor. So, we're going to close this here just a little. Tomorrow, Monday morning, we'll be back on here. We'll talk about what we can do about all this stuff. The government is out of hand. We're going to have to rein them back in through being the squeaky wheel, and also through a social movement. And we'll talk about that. It's a collective or joint action with change-oriented goals. Collective joint action, change-oriented goals. And there's a little more to the change-oriented goals, with some degree of organization and some degree of temporal community. Means it's continued. We had this going since about 6 years now. And some extra-institutional collective action. The government systems are not going to work for us. They're not going to. The court systems are set up for them. They're not going to work for us. The judicial system is not going to work for us. It won't work. It works for them. It's in their favor. The governor promotes judges that rule in his favor. Let me show you a study of attorneys. If you're charged with a criminal offense, you would think that your attorney is going to defend you, that he will stand up for you in court and defend you. Whether or not you're innocent or not, you still have rights. Even if you're guilty in this state, in America, we believe, illusionary as it may be, that only the guilty should go to jail, and the state has to prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt. And that if the state can't prove its case, we think that it's better that innocent people go free than guilty people go to jail. So we have a high burden of proof. But that's the framework. But does it in reality work that way? No, because the government is the one that puts the attorneys in place that work for them, not for you. So they're double agents. So it is assumed that police, through forced coercions and the district attorney employing still other pressures, are most instrumental in the incident of accused pleading guilty. And this table indicates it's actually the defendant's own counsel is the most effective in this role. The phenomenon to reinforce the extremely rational nature of criminal law for an organization could not rely upon sort of autosonic measures employed by the police induced confession to maintain its efficiency. High production, overall rational legal character. The defense counsel becomes the ideal agent mediator, officer of the court, and the defendant, the accused, and his kin, he lives aside both worlds, can serve the ends of the too well as his own. So attorneys are double agents, and they serve the interest of Governor Bill Lee. They don't serve your interest. And any attorney that will stand up against the government and defend you and defend criminals won't get his law license. Here's the Board of Law Examiners. They turned me down for my law license twice, not once, twice. Not for being dishonest, for being honest. And I'm not saying there's not honest attorneys, there are a few. But where they find out that an attorney, based on previous experiences, is going to stand up for the truth, then they won't license them. And the Tennessee Board of Law Examiners gets tax money. They're state funded. Look at this. Tennessee Board of Law Examiners. They got $786,000, $765,000 from total income from almost $1 million tax money and fees from federal student loans. So, I said typically go off on the law, go read it. Quite all of a sudden. You should definitely post some live content. Your society is missing out on a glorious loco because you choose to hide. I don't choose to hide. Thank you for running up my views. So anyway, the Tennessee Board of Law Examiners gets paid from tax money to decide who gets to be a lawyer, and their lawyers, who's the first person to tell a client that they should plead guilty? Some people think, well, it would be the district attorney, or it would be the judge, or it would be somebody else, a co-defendant. The first person to suggest that a criminal defendant, 724 people asked that they should plead guilty, whether or not they're guilty or not outside the issue, was the defense counsel. Overwhelmingly, 407 out of 724, the defense counsel recommended to the client that they should plead guilty. How much pressure is that to plead guilty? The lawyers appointed by the Tennessee Board of Law Examiners, who examine their character, suggest to their criminal defendant, who may be completely innocent, overwhelming part of the time, that they should plead guilty. So you're not going to plead guilty, and you're going into court trying to defend yourself with your attorney thinks that you shouldn't even defend yourself. Wow, that's pretty good odds. So they line up these attorneys. They get these attorneys, approve them to tell defendants to plead guilty so that they can incarcerate people. There's a study done that incarceration rates increase during times when the government doesn't need people to work. Just like in the 1890s. And I'm not talking about there's more crime during unemployment. I'm talking about holding the crime rate constant. Statistically, there's more people put in jail by the government when the government doesn't have jobs that they need for them to be done, irrespective of crime. So people think that crime is the reason why the United States of America has more people in jail than any country in the world. Sociologists, some of them, it's a well-respected theory that no. The heavy incarceration rate in the United States of America has little to do with the amount of crime. Crime being constant. More people go to jail when there's less jobs that the government needs people to do. When there is more jobs, they let people out of jail. Irrespective of the crime rate. There will be high crime and they let people out of jail because they need them to work. When there is less jobs for them to do, not a lot of work for them to do, and they have an over number of people to do the job, then they start making decisions. Police officers make decisions about who to put in jail, and they put more people in jail because of they don't need them to work, because of the not crime, because of they control them when they don't have a lot of jobs. So it's more about control than it is about crime. And just like the Tennessee Board of Law Examiners, licensed attorneys, and they're the first one to say, hey, client, plead guilty. What if the client says, I didn't do that, I was in another state? The client, overwhelmingly, 407 out of 724 is the most, first person telling to plead guilty. First suggested plea of guilty is their defense counsel. Approved by the government, for the government, won't approve me. I wouldn't tell people that. I would say a jury is your best protection from the government. Don't take it to trial, because a jury is a citizen of peers. You plead guilty to a government lawyer, to a government prosecutor, and you're allowing your state-approved government attorney to tell you to plead guilty. That's a lot of power. Influence the accused most in his final decision. Overwhelmingly, 411 out of 724 was the criminal defense attorney, causing these people to plead guilty to the government, by the government, for the government, going to jail when they don't have much work to do. But And the second most likely person to tell them to plead guilty that suggested they plead guilty was their fellow inmates. And the most important person to them, that after the plea, the most important decision was their attorney and their spouse. Convinced to plead. So what kind of social pressure is that to plead guilty? You're not guilty, and your attorney tells you to plead guilty, and your wife tells you to plead guilty. What kind of social pressure is that? You're on your own. You're on your own if you don't plead guilty. And so that's the kind of social pressure that people are under. These state-appointed judges that sit behind a desk, these prosecutors that dismiss cases, these judges that rig evidence for the state, and these governors that promote judges to do whatever the governor tells them to do. So we're going to talk about one other thing. We're going to talk about former Captain Derek Stewart. We can't get out of here without trashing him. He spent his career behind a desk, and he literally teaches at schools. Former Colonel spent his career behind a desk in safety, yelling at cadets, yelling profanity at some new recruits without politics or family and state government. Now he's teaching at the University of Tennessee, taught a class down there. Wow. These people in the government, remember this word, are crime lords. Is a person who projects a respectable, upright facade in an attempt to conceal criminal personality. This type, first defined by Cesar Lenaro's in later editions of 1876 work, The Criminal Man. And like ordinary criminals, criminals enjoy the respect of society, the people in government power, and because they often establish connections with the government or they're in the government and the law, they are less likely to meet with opposition. Due to their respecting standing, they generally enjoy greater prosperity than the average criminal and have an automatic advantage over their more conscientious colleagues. From the Encyclopedia of White-Collar Crime, Corporate Crime, the key to the criminaloid, it's criminaloid, is not evil impulse, but moral insensibility. The criminals prefer to prey on the anonymous public by getting into government power. He goes beyond this by convincing others to act instead of acting himself, which protects him from liability and being labeled criminal, and instead immune to such scrutiny. The criminaloid practices a protective impersonation of good. The criminaloid counterfeits the good citizen. So that's what people in government power do. They are criminaloids. Monday morning at about 6 o'clock, maybe 6:30, maybe thereafter, we'll have another show. Charles Van Morgan in the morning. Thank y'all for listening. We may talk about their gaslighting, where they say one thing and do another, people in government power. We're going to talk about social movement organizations and what we need to do to fix some of this corruption. And we'll get this stuff from Social Movement Organization. Here's the source, if you want to see that. And lastly, we're going to show you this. When I ran for governor, I stopped at churches all across the state, God's houses. When people were there, I'd talk to them. A lot of nice, kind people at churches. I talked to a lot of people. Some of them weren't so nice. Today, we talked about crimes of privilege, much more dangerous to you than street criminals. We talked about how the General Assembly sided with the coal bosses during that August 1891 special session, ending the working coal miners' efforts to get a job. And this is how they started a social movement. We'll talk about that ended up with the governor being not elected into office, which is what we're trying to do, to get the Democrats and the Republicans from gaining office. It was a Halloween night in 1891 Tennessee miners' righteous mayhem is what we talked about this morning. Rewind it if you didn't hear that. And we're going to end with this morning with a verse with some information that we got from a church in Tennessee when we went over the state running for governor. I was inspired by churches' messages on the signs in front of churches are inspiring messages from God. So I always tried to take a picture of the message and show I was there, me standing in front of the picture. So hopefully this will encourage you. Join us Monday morning about 6 o'clock, 6:30 for Charles Van Morgan Unbridled News that you won't hear anywhere else. And we'll talk about the social movement, how we need to get it organized. And thank y'all for listening. See how many people I got, and we'll show you this Bible verse. It says here, don't stop praying. Prayer moves mountains. So that's the ultimate answer, is to pray about things and then take action. So we'll explain to you social movements tomorrow, Monday morning. We will take Sunday off, and we'll bring you some more news. And may talk a little bit about the recent executions in Tennessee. I was on patrol with the University of Tennessee Police Department, not the night, but I worked for the police department when Colleen Slimmer was murdered. And interesting story about that I got to tell. I wasn't working that actual night, but there's an interesting story about what happened, and kind of a little fluke situation. I may tell you about that Monday morning. We'll talk about social movements and what we can do to facilitate getting crooked people out of power. And so we got monetized. So thank y'all. If you want to contribute, then you can do that by hitting the Square link or the Cash App link. And we've been doing this for several years now, pretty aggressively here the past few months, and finally got monetized. We appreciate all the viewers. Thank y'all so very much. God bless y'all. We prepare about 2 or 3 hours before every broadcast to get information together about criminology and the law and stuff to try to bring you shows. If you want some particular type of information, then let me know what it is. Share, like, subscribe, comment, contribute, spread the message, and help us bring back power to you, the people. And thank y'all so very much for joining. And until Monday morning, or if something happens during the week, loud cars, then we might do a live news show wherever it's at. So thank y'all very much. God bless y'all. And like always, last thing I say is God loves you, and I do too.